For the longest time, people debated, do fish feel pain? Which was a sentience question. Do fish feel pain? And then experimenters, they found that if you shock fish or crabs, in a laboratory, you bring them in a situation where they can hide themselves in crevices, and you shock them in these places, they're going to avoid the places where they were shocked.
Right, so they have anxiety too then, because that avoidance is anxiety. So they have pain and they can abstract from that.
So they have pain and they remember the pain and they change their behavior as a result of that. And so that was used as a conclusion to conclude that these animals have sentience because they have experiences. So sentience is the bigger issue. Also morally a very important issue, of course. Do animals have sentience? And consciousness, I never know exactly what it is, because philosophers talk a lot about consciousness, but they never tell me how to measure it.
Well, you said that you associated sentience with the capacity to experience, and then I think, well, there's no difference between the capacity to experience and experience. And there's actually no difference between experience and being, because it's very, very difficult to understand being itself in the absence of any experience of being. I mean, what is it that there's not even nothing, right? Because nothing is only a concept that something that's capable of apprehending something could ever come up with. So I don't see consciousness and being as being separable concepts in some sense. And so you chase that all the way down to insects. Okay.
Yeah, so sentience now is recognized also in invertebrates. And there used to be a debate about fish, but I think that debate has been settled.
Well, it certainly seems to be the case for octopi. Those things are so smart and so flexible in their behavior that it's beyond. Did you see my octopus teacher? Yeah. Their capacity to mimic and camouflage is just, to see that octopus aggregate all those shells and turn itself into a rock. I mean, especially given they have, about a 3-year lifespan?
So the octopus is interesting. That movie, The Octopus Teacher, many people were very moved by the octopus embracing the person, who approached. Octopi are not particularly social. As you say, they live maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. They're very solitary creatures. I don't think they have love for each other or the capacity to love a human. But maybe that octopus was very curious, and maybe the octopus also felt safe in the presence of a human, because this human kept predators away, I'm sure. So it was maybe a good situation for the octopus to be in.
Yeah, and curiosity could easily be the reason, because the octopus is so damn smart. It probably has some excess cognitive capacity, like a rainbow.
Yeah, but people then often project what they would feel. They think the octopus is loving the human. I'm not sure about the loving part.
I think anything that isn't cuddly is probably a little low on the love end of things, So let's talk about self-consciousness then, because that's the consciousness, that's a sentience that involves at least a reflexive distinction between self and other, broadly speaking. And I've been interested in, but also skeptical of the animal self-conscious experiments, because mirror recognition isn't nothing. But humans have an unbelievably elaborated self-consciousness. I mean, we're fully aware of our span of life. We know we're going to die. We can really distinctly apprehend the future. And we have a really complex, explicit model of ourselves. And animals, many animals can recognize themselves in the mirror, and that's not nothing, but it's certainly...
No, there's not many animals. There's a few. There's only a few who do that. But we do have evidence in chimpanzees and in orangutans that they embellish themselves in front of the mirror. So the observations, they're mostly anecdotal of apes in captivity who put something on their head and then look in the mirror. Or in human context, they may put lipstick and look at themselves in the mirror. So if you embellish yourself and then look in the mirror, that's sort of interesting addition to the test.
Definitely. Because, it also sees that you view yourself as a modifiable entity in the eyes of others, in all likelihood.
Yeah, so we also have evidence from behavior that female apes, female chimpanzees and female bonobos, they do more self-adornment and self-embellishment than the males. So the females, they will hang things around themselves, put things on their head, walk around with them, much more so than the males. The males also use tools to enhance themselves, but that's more to be more intimidating.
Right, like beating on a garbage can or something.
Banging things or whatever.
Well, when my daughter was young, I watched my kids quite closely when they were little, and there was a variety of differences in them on the sex difference front. My son was much more disagreeable and tough-minded than my daughter, for example. But I also saw remarkably early in my daughter this instinct for self-adornment. Now, my wife doesn't wear much jewelry or much makeup. She's kind of a minimalist in both regards, and so she didn't even have much of a jewelry collection. But my daughter was really entranced by jewelry and makeup from as far back as I can remember, and I thought, well, maybe that's a socialized difference, but I can't see how, because she didn't have makeup dolls, and it wasn't part of what she was being fed. She didn't watch TV, and so, but she was really, really interested in jewelry and adornment. And I think that's actually been a stable part of her character, because as an adult, she's been much more interested in self-adornment than my wife was. And it wasn't obvious to me at all that she learned that. And I thought, well,
So in the apes, that's also...
Is that a super stimulus thing, like the sticklebacks? That adornment?
It's more a female thing, and I think in the apes, of course, the females have a genital swelling, which fortunately, I think humans should be happy that we don't have that. But they have this, when they're fertile, their genitals swell up. And I think the female apes, that's an adornment for sure, and they add to it. They may add to it. Now, we know from human women that in the time of ovulation, they adorn themselves more. So there are studies on that, is that women dress differently at the time of ovulation, and they expose more skin, and they have fancier clothes on usually at that time.
That's also when they prefer the same photos of men with a squarer jaw than a narrower jaw at the peak of ovulation.
All of this is unconsciously, because in that study, what they did is they photographed women in their regular clothes, and then they asked them about their menstrual cycle, and that's how they figured out how they were dressed relative to their cycle.
Right, and that would manifest itself in that Umwelt, which would be something like, I really feel like dressing up today.
Yeah.
And there'd be and that's a spontaneous motivation that's drifting up from hormonal influence and unconscious in that sense, and tuning by hormones, tuning of perception and emotion by hormonal influence.
To me, it's always very interesting, the things that we do unconsciously, and that